we will start. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So today we will be talking about addictions and mental health. Now it's an interesting topic. It's a lengthy topic. We will try to cover as much as possible, but if you people have any questions, you can write it on the chat box, or you can obviously stop me and ask the question if you want to. As I mentioned earlier, this topic is a lengthy topic. We will try to cover as much as possible, but of course, this topic won't be covered in just one go. I hope it will be interesting for you. So let's proceed further. नासिर काज़मी की ये गजल है, मेरी नहीं है. So we will start from this. नासिर क्या कहता फिरता है, कुछ ना सुनो तो बेहतर है. दीवाना है दीवाने के, मुंह ना लगो तो बेहतर है. कल जो था वो आज नहीं, जो आज है कल मिट जाएगा. रूखी सूखी जो मिल जाए, शुक्र करो तो बेहतर है. क्या जाने क्या रुत बदले, हालात का कोई ठीक नहीं. अब के सफर में तुम भी हमारे साथ चलो तो बेहतर है. So if you people bear with me, I will try to cover the psychiatry as much as possible. Now there are multiple theories related to addictions. And when we talk about theories of addiction, basically we mean how to treat these people and how to address the issues which in day-to-day practice the patients are presenting to us. So the theory is significant and important only for the reason of the management of the actual life patients. And this is the reason why I was telling you that this is a lengthy topic, because we will try to cover most of the substances that could be addictive, what impact they can have on mental health, and how to address them. So the theory of addiction include the first and the foremost theory is the physical dependence theory. Physical dependence theory. So any substance which we take and there is an intake of a substance that can have a physical dependence, that covers the physical dependence theory. So it's a theory that addicts are driven by their withdrawal symptoms to self-administer the drug. So this is physical dependence theory, that if I take something and then I don't take it, I develop some kind of the withdrawal symptoms, and then I realize that without taking that thing, I won't be comfortable. So let's avoid the withdrawal symptoms and keep taking the drugs. It is the physical symptoms of withdrawal that make a person use the drugs to avoid experiencing withdrawals. So this is a physical dependence theory. I don't want to have the withdrawal. So if I drink a cup of tea and without the cup of tea, I feel headache, fatigue, malaise, lethargy, blah, 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 then of course, I want to avoid those withdrawal symptoms. So I take the tea back again. Early treatment programs attempted to deal with this by slowly reducing the levels of the drug administered to lessen the withdrawal symptoms. So long time back when I started practicing psychiatry, we used to dispense the opium tablets to people who were dependent on it. And it was an officially given opium tablets, 500 milligram tablets, which were manufactured by Excise and Taxation Department. And they were given to various psychiatry departments for the treatment of addictions related to opioids. So we were not able to shut it off suddenly. So we were trying to give opium officially to the people and then gradually reducing the dosage and weaning it off. So this physical dependence theory to avoid the withdrawal symptoms is effective in a number of situations. This process was called detoxification. So when we try to reduce the number of the drug or the amount of the drug which is administered on a daily basis, slowly and gradually reducing it to just get rid of it, it's usually physical dependence theory, which is based on the withdrawal symptoms. Not to have withdrawals is detoxification. Most patients who went through this gradual withdrawal returned to their drug using habits when released. So initially, when the opium was given to them and it was gradually tapered off, and if we were not able to address the other issues associated with the addiction, then unfortunately, the chances of having a relapse were very high. Drug detoxification programs can fail for two reasons. One, some highly addictive drugs like cocaine, amphetamines do not produce withdrawal symptoms at all. So people don't have the withdrawal symptoms from weed, from marijuana, from cocaine, from amphetamines, but they are dependence producing substances. Now, why they are dependence producing substances, we will touch those topics again in the later half of the presentation. Drugs, drug use is usually a cycle of binges. So you feel that if I'll take the drug, I'll be high and I will enjoy whatever is happening around me. So a party type of a drug. So people use cocaine for party, for enjoyment, for recreational purposes. And the abstinence, like if you are in jail, if you are working, if you are again in some kind of a situation where you need to focus and you need to enhance your capabilities, you feel that you need the drug. So going through that detoxification only continues the cycle. So the person goes back to the same situation, goes back to the same work, goes back to the same environment, and he feels that he is missing something. So he should use it so that his productivity, his mood, his comfort level should be better. And that is one of the reasons why people continue to take the drugs. Then physical dependence theory and relapse. So there is a situational relapse. Physical dependence theory proposes that addicts frequently relapse because withdrawal symptoms can be conditioned. So conditioning, the learning theory, I hope you all know the learning theory. So learning theory means that if I go to the same environment, same situation, same friends, same kind of work, same kind of a party, same kind of people around me, then there are chances that even if I'm not taking the drug for a longer period of time, I will start having the withdrawal symptoms of the same drug which I used to take a long time ago. So this is conditioning, right? Conditioning to a situation. When they return to the situation that they associate with the drugs, it elicits withdrawal, even in individuals that have not used the drugs for prolonged periods of time. So there is two problems with this theory. Most often, returning to an environment elicit effects associated with the drug rather than the withdrawal. So they are not actually withdrawal symptoms, but they are felt withdrawal symptoms because of the conditioning around the person. And that was one of the reasons why most of the time this theory was not accepted. Because if that theory is acceptable, then of course, conditioning plays another role. So we have to add on to the psychological therapies and psychological phenomena associated with dependence. Experimental animals and addicts often prefer drug associated cues, even when no drug is forthcoming. So, needle addicts, detoxified, heroin addicts who derive pleasure from sticking empty needles into themselves. So, there was no drug, but they were having that conditioning psychological where they used to pinch the needles in their body and they were feeling that they were okay and they were not experiencing the withdrawals. So these are, again, all these theories won't cover everything, but we have to understand that each theory holds some positives and some negatives. So we have to understand all the theories. Now, another theory is positive incentive theory. Positive incentive theory dictates that most addicts take drugs to obtain their positive pleasure producing effects. Withdrawal symptoms may be aversive and modulate usage, but it is the positive aspects of the drug use that really drive addiction. So, what happens when I take the drugs? Again, incentive sensitization. The incentive value of addictive drugs increases with increasing use. The key point is that it is the anticipated pleasure of the drug taking that is the basis for addiction, not the drug taking itself. So I will smoke and I will get pleasure out of it. It may not be actually happening, but I assume that I am trying to have that positive impact of the drug. If I'll smoke, I'll be more vigilant, I'll be more active, I'll be more having pleasure and do the things relatively well. So this incentive sensitization leads to positive incentive theories. And they further dictate that many addicts have ruined their lives, live in poverty, are unhealthy, and have developed too much tolerance to a drug to drive that great pleasure from using it, yet they nevertheless crave the drug more than ever. You keep on increasing the drug. So you smoke one cigarette, then to get the same effect that you want, you take another one, you take another one, you take another one, and it keeps on escalating. So this is positive incentive theory and one way of looking addiction. Then there is reward circuits and addiction, right? So intracranial self-stimulation. Scientists have known since 1950s that certain areas in the brain produce rewarding effects when stimulated. Rats will bar press several thousand times per hour to stimulate the septal or lateral hypothalamus areas. This is one of the areas that is basically associated with addiction, lateral hypothalamus area, stopping only when they are exhausted. So rats stop bar pressing immediately when the current is cut off. Experienced bar pressers have to be primed to get them to bar press when they are returned to the cage. So this is another theory that we want, again, to make sure that our brain keeps on working normally, we keep on having the desired effects. 5 lines of evidence. Lab animals will self-administer micro-injections of addictive drugs directly into mesotelencephalic dopamine system. Now, this is again theoretically proven that people who use the drugs, their mesotelencephalic dopamine system, but not elsewhere in the brain, is stimulated. Microinjection of the drugs into the mesotelencephalic system can lead to place preference. Addictive drugs, but not non-addictive drugs, can increase the rewarding effects of electrical stimulation of the mesotelencephalic system. Lesions of the mesotelencephalic system and dopaminergic antagonists reduce the rewarding effects of systematically injected drugs. Self-administration of the drugs is associated with an increase in dopamine levels in the regions that the mesotelencephalic region projects to 60. So this area of the brain is important as far as the addiction is concerned, and dopaminergic system is important as far as the addiction is concerned. Now, you have to keep those things in harmony. So you have to keep the first theory that I told you, the second theory I told you, and the third theory I told you, and there are other theories associated with addiction as well. I hope you people are able to understand what I'm saying. If you fail to understand, please stop me. ये अगेन नासिर काज़मी की एक गज़ल है और जो एक हमारे बड़े मशहूर गुलकार ने गाई, आप सबने सुनी होगी। सिर्फ इसका एक कथा सुनाऊंगा। दिल में एक लहर सी उठी है अभी, कोई ताज़ा हवा चली है अभी, कुछ तो नाजुक मिजाज हैं हम भी, और ये चोट भी नई है अभी. So it's a beautiful ghazal if you'll be able to listen to that singer, and Ghulam Ali Saab ne gai, and it was beautifully sung. So enjoy that, but don't get addicted to it, right? So make sure that you are not addicted to it. So let's move forward. Drugs and addiction. Alcohol, auto accidents, fetal alcohol syndromes, cirrhosis, psychological problems, smoking, nicotine, heart, stroke, lung diseases, smaller birth rates, cocaine, psychotic behavior, brain damage, death by overdose, brain damage and psychotic behavior in children born to the addicts, designer drugs, quality control problems, symptoms in some patients of psychosis, crime, overdose, physiological damage to body. With so many bad aspects to the drugs, why do we do it? Most of the people know that these drugs are harmful, but still do it. Some 60 million Americans are addicted to nicotine and alcohol. Only an estimated 5.5 million are addicted to illegal substances. Now, if you go through the statistics of the addiction, you will say most of the time, most of the countries, the data is not available. Like in Pakistan, we don't have a concrete data that we can quote. So this is one of the reasons why I quote the American studies, because unfortunately, the data collection there is much superior than any other place, so which we have to accept it. But there are definitely other countries where the data collection is good and we can understand exact dynamics associated with this data. So remember that addictive substances and use of addiction is common. Addiction is a word which is derived from a Latin word meaning to sentence. Someone who is addicted to a drug is in a way sentenced to term of involuntary servitude to that drug. So you are hooked onto the drug like a slave, like you have been punished to be associated with that drug. And this goes for, again, number of things otherwise as well. We are addicted to our family life. We are addicted to our wives. We are addicted to so many other things. Well, this is just joke, but still, all of these things are just like a sentence. We cannot get rid of them. We cannot, by choice or by will, do some things, because some few things are socially not acceptable, some things are psychologically not acceptable, some things are biologically, unfortunately, complicated. So addiction comes from the word which derives the meaning to sentence. Some also eliminate unpleasant feelings. Funnily enough, too often use these feelings are produced by the drugs themselves. The immediate consequences of the drugs are more powerful than realization of the long-term disadvantages. This is another complication with the addiction, that despite knowing that this is not good for you, at the time when you are using it, that realization disappears and you start using them and you continue with them as well. So this is addiction. Physical versus psychological addiction. So there are theories that this drug can cause physical dependence, this drug can cause psychological dependence, this drug can cause tolerance, this drug can cause withdrawal symptoms. All of these phenomena are associated with addiction. But again, as I mentioned to you earlier, not one of the thing would be able to explain everything. So we have to consider the holistic approach. All these theories should be combined together. So the physical dependence, an adaptive state that manifests itself by intense physical disturbance when administration of the drug is suspended. Psychic dependence, a feeling of satisfaction and psychic drive that requires periodic or continual administration of the drug to produce pleasure or avoid discomfort. Tolerance, the fact that increasingly large doses of the drug must be administered to achieve a particular effect, caused by a compensatory mechanism that oppose the effect of the drug. Then withdrawal symptoms. Symptoms opposite to those produced by the drug. When the drug is suddenly no longer taken, caused by compensatory mechanisms in the brain and the body. All of these terms are important and you should be able to understand the definitions of each one of them. So tolerance, to get the desired effect, we have to increase the dosage to get the desired effect. This is tolerance. Withdrawal, if the drug is giving me, say, muscle relaxation, not taking the drug will cause stiffness of the muscles. If the drug is giving me, say, happiness, not taking the drug will cause sadness. So its withdrawal symptoms are exactly opposite to the effect of the drug. Any drug, so smoking or anything, which the desired effects, if they go away and opposite of that comes in, then of course it is troublesome for the addicts. I hope again you people are all able to get to me. Again, if you feel that you need to get more elaboration, just let me know. Drugs that have effects on the central nervous system are called psychoactive drugs. Drugs can roughly be grouped into four categories: stimulants, depressants, no effects, and complex effects. So there are four categories: stimulants, depressants, no effects, and complex effects. And we will classify the drugs according to that. We will come to that again. Principles of drug action. So oral drug administration, oral ingestion, injections, inhalation, absorption through the mucous membrane. There is a theory that in human body, there is not even a single surface which is accessible, is not used for the drug addictions. So if you have a skin, it is used for addiction. Nose, used for addiction. Mucosa, used for addiction. Vagina, anal canal, veins, you name the surface, and it is used for addiction. So there are various, again, categories, but the addicts can use all of them. Stimulants. What are stimulants? Amphetamines, caffeine, nicotine, cocaine, they are all stimulants. They excite, they arouse, they increase alertness, they elevate mood, they speed up signals of the brain, and some newer drugs, well, they have mentioned Prozac, but I don't believe in it, work mainly as a mood elevators and do not supposedly produce the other effects. So no effect and excite. So stimulants are excitable drugs. नए कपड़े पहन बदल कर जाऊं कहां और बाल बनाऊं किसके लिए. दिस इज अगेन नासिर काजमी. वो शख्स तो शहर ही छोड़ गया, मैं बाहर जाऊं किसके लिए. मुद्दत से कोई आया ना गया, सुनसान पड़ी है घर की फिजा, इन खाली कमरों में नासिर, अब शम्मा जलाऊं किसके लिए. Addiction is complex. Now we will talk about some of the common compounds that can cause addiction, but we don't consider them addiction. The first and the foremost is caffeine, theophylline, theobromine. Most widely stimulants worldwide, typical forms, especially in USA and other parts of the Europe and other countries, coffee, tea, chocolate, and over-the-counter preparations like soft drinks. This is again tricky. Coffee. The legend is the Arabian goatherd noticed the effects on his goats after they consumed the red berries of the shrub. In 1900 AD, included in the medical practice of Arabian physicians, good for what ails you. In 1674, England, women relied against its use, made men unfruitful. So they were not productive. They were not able to produce children. Coffee houses linked to political dissent, sedition, Charles II Outlaws, Lives of London. Originally, Ed Lloyd's Coffee House in the USA replaces tea as the national drink after the taxation issue. Commercial roasting was again introduced in New York. Unstable, deteriorates 2 to 3 weeks. So Maxwell House blend introduced was first real commercial variety in 1892 of coffee. And vacuum packing sirka in 1900s was used a lot as a coffee drink. Used continuously to increased, and coffee houses were basically again across the globe. Coffee is one of the most superior stimulant which is illicitly available in the market. Anybody can drink it, even though the children can drink it. But it contains caffeine. It contains variable amount of the caffeine. And the more refined the coffee gets, the more addictive it is. So unfortunately, don't want to say the names of the commercial organization which are doing that. But nowadays, you move in Lahore, and in every corner you will find a coffee house where people sit and drink coffee. They use caffeine as a stimulant. They feel good, pleasurable. They pay the price. And I was surprised to see the cost of the coffee in Lahore these days. It varies from 400 per cup to 1800 per cup, which is surprising. And people spend 1800 rupees on a good cup of coffee, which they enjoy. So, what is in it which makes you enjoy so much? It's the caffeine, which is the active ingredient in the coffee. And historically, again, this background I have told you, so initially it started and then it gradually progressed. And now there are multi-million companies which are making hordes of money making people addicted to coffee. Here, people grab the cup of coffee in the morning, a big cup, this much, a large size coffee, and they sip it during the morning hours, sometime up to the lunch hour, just to make sure that they keep on sipping it and getting the stimulation. So, do we think it is addictive? Yes, it is addictive. You cannot get rid of it. You get withdrawal symptoms if you won't sip that. And in Pakistan, again, it's happening the same. So, coffee is an addiction in a way. Tea. There is a strange theory about the tea. So the Greek god Zen, Daruma, fell asleep while meditating, cut off his eyelids where they fell, a tea plant grew. A brew of its leaves would keep you awake. So the Greek god actually was waiting for the beloved and fell asleep, and his eyelid fell down on the ground, and there grew a tree which won't make you go off to sleep. So you drink a cup of tea, so you will not be able to sleep, and this is addictive. In 350 AD, China primarily used it as a medicinal herb, widely used by 780 AD, then first mentioned in Europe. In 1500s, Dutch began importing trade wars during the 17th century between Holland and England over the tea business. Begins to replace coffee as a drink in England. Drink tea campaign, English East India Company. So we all know about East India Company. They came to, again, India and subcontinent just for one reason, to get the tea, the best quality tea, which is produced in Indo-Pakistan. Profits helped colonize India, led to opium wars with China, linked tea to drinking to patriotism, coupled with low tax on tea and high tax on alcohol. Becomes a national drink, tea plant, the bud leaf, flowering orange pekoe. This orange pekoe tea, this is the tea that we drink in Pakistan, all of us. Orange, it is called orange pekoe tea, which is again available as again various brands in the in subcontinent. The dark brown blackish leaves are orange pekoe. It is unfortunately the lowest standard of the tea. I remember I went to Sri Lanka a long time ago, and they told me the history of the tea. So they go grow tea over the slopes of the mountains. And the tea which is grown at the height of the mountain slopes, not at the peak, but at the slopes of the highest mountains, is considered to be the most delicate tea as far as the color, the blend, the flavor is concerned. So I spent about $80 in buying the small box of that tea, which was grown in the topmost mountain slopes in Sri Lanka. I brought it back to Pakistan and gave it to my wife. She dipped that again sack into the tea bag, in a water, saw it, saw the color of the tea, and she said, "Is it tea?" Sipped it, and she threw it away because that tea had a different color, different flavor, different, again, aroma. But the tea, which is most commonly used, is considered to be, again, a strong tea, which is orange pekoe, which is grown in the flat, again, ranges across the globe. Orange pekoe tea. Then there were dried, crushed, oxidized black tea quality controls were established in USA and other parts of the world. In 1904, iced tea was introduced at World's Fair in St. Louis. Tea bags were introduced in New York in early 1900s. And pound for pound, more caffeine than coffee, but brew more cup per pound. So 1 pound of coffee can make you, say, 10 cups. So 1 pound of tea will make at least 50 cups. So it was cheaper and producing the same effect as coffee, not up to the same level, but of course to a level. Theophylline found in small quantities in the tea as well. It causes bronchodilation and cardiovascular, again, stimulant. So the history of the tea is so much. How much of caffeine in a cup? Just look at this graph and you will be able to understand. Drip coffee, 5 ounce, 115 milligrams of caffeine. Percolated coffee, 80 milligrams of caffeine. Instant coffee, 65 milligram of caffeine. Brewed decaffeinated coffee, 3 milligram of caffeine. Instant decaffeinated coffee, 2 milligrams of caffeine. Brewed US tea, 40 milligrams of caffeine. Brewed imported tea, which is, again, imported means from the countries where we live, 60 milligrams of coffee. Instant tea, 30 milligrams of caffeine. Iced tea, 70 milligrams of coffee. Cocoa and chocolate products, chocolate milk, hot chocolate, 2 to 20 milligrams of caffeine. Milk chocolate, 15 milligrams of caffeine. Dark chocolate, 35 milligrams of caffeine. Baker's chocolate, 26 milligrams of caffeine. And chocolate flavored syrup, 4 milligrams of caffeine. So there is a quantity of caffeine throughout all the products which are available in the market. Initially, there was a drink by the name of, again, commercially, I should not say it, a bull kind of a thing. And people were enjoying it because it was considered to be a power and energy drink. What was in the energy drink? It was actually the stimulant. There was 25 to 45 milligrams of sheer caffeine, which will make you hyper. Then there was another energy drink in the market, and I saw the advertisement of that drink. So a person was drinking it, and he was charged to an extent that he was able to start a boat, and a beautiful girl on it was able to ride on the boat. So what is that? Means a lot of energy is coming into you because you are stimulated. And these stimulants, the more the stimulation is, the better is the energy drink. This is what the people consider. As a psychiatrist, we know that these energy drinks are actually producing lots of stimulation and can cause multiple mental health problems. And we will talk about these addictions further, and we'll proceed further with the addiction. So I am stopping here. Anybody has any question? No question? Okay. Anybody has any question? No question? Okay. So just understand this, that the reason why I started talking about addiction was not actually the addiction that we consider clinically as heroin, opium, and other drugs, but these things are addictive as well. So I just began this presentation and hopefully would be able to cover it furthermore and we'll tell you some interesting facts about all of these phenomena happening. So remember the addiction theories, the physical dependence theories, the tolerance, the withdrawals, and then we will try to proceed further with further things. If no question, thank you very much for listening to this presentation because I thought that I should start it. This presentation was made by me long time ago. So I don't even remember how long ago. But this was an interesting presentation. So I thought that I should start with the addictions. We will cover up the scientific backgrounds in other areas also later on. Thank you very much. Anything else? Anybody? No? Okay, good. So hope to see you people next Friday again, and we will continue the addiction and Nasir Kazmi as well. Thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.